are you?
This is Kevin.
Kevin Key.
Yeah, Kevin Key calling.
Kevin Key from what, though, Kevin? Are you Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy? What is the official Kevin Key rundown these days?
Yeah, Kevin Key, Skinny Puppy, Kevin Key from Vancouver, Kevin Key from the universe.
Kevin Key from Download.
Kevin Key from Download.
What else is there? There's quite a bit of Kevin Keying, isn't there?
Kevin Key from Tiergarten. Kevin Key from Plateau. Kevin Key from Subconscious Studios. I don't know. There's many, I guess you could say there's many avenues. Kevin Key from Scaremeister now.
And Kevin Key from The Love Affair.
Kevin Key from The Love Affair, the grand old days. Yep, full circle. That's where it all started, Nardwuar.
Well, you know what's really interesting? When you say it all started in Vancouver, it really did start in Vancouver, and it started for me, Kevin Key, because the first gig I ever went to in my life was on my birthday on July 5th, 1985, at the New York Theater, which was headlined by...
Skinny Puppy.
Skinny Puppy and I, Brain Eater at the New York...
that's right. I remember that show.
What do you remember exactly about that show? That was the first gig I ever went to. You were the first band I ever saw live, Skinny Puppy.
That's incredible. I'm honored.
Well, I'm dishonored that you actually played. It was incredible. Like, it was such a great gig at the New York Theater. That was a great place for gigs. They might be bringing back the New York Theater. It's been bought out, and they might be turning into a place to do gigs again. But when you were playing the New York Theater, what do you remember about playing New York Theater? How many times did you play there? And 85, what do you remember going on around that time, around July 1985?
Well, I believe that was our first show we ever really did that had any production, and then we just sort of set a bunch of minds afloat in the community, Dave Jackson and a bunch of people in a creative sense, and we showed up and they literally built a metal fortress on the stage, if you remember.
I do.
And we were using some very strange effects at that time, like a gooey duck and strange lit-up metallic substances, and things that I hadn't really expected to happen and had happened as a result of setting a bunch of, as I said, minds afloat. So it was a kind of collective of a bunch of creative people just coming together all at once, and it made me realize that there was probably a scene in amongst all this. It was kind of a surprising day for me.
What I find interesting also about that gig is local punk rock photographer Bev Davies took some photos at that gig, and I've seen those photos since, and she's described to me taking photos of you guys in Vancouver, because she was into taking photos of punk people, that when she would go to other cities, she would see people that looked like you, and she would say, hey, those are Skinny Puppy people. Like, you guys were the first people to look that way in rock bands around North America. That's what she thought. Did people say that you resembled puppy people? Like, were you going to another town? Did you see people dressed up like yourself? Because she was saying when she saw people, it was like, what, you're copying Skinny Puppy? It was spreading like wildfire there.
Yeah, I think at around the same time there was a scene in England called the Bat Cave, which was kind of starting. And I think Alien Sex Fiend came over and did a show in Vancouver right around that period, and we were realizing that they were coming down the same path, sort of. So we realized that there was a scene that was starting, and then the movie The Hunger had just come out, I remember that, and they had Bauhaus in it, and they were sort of featuring a more... We knew that the scene was something was about to happen with the scene at that moment.
And actually, we got an email question right off the bat speaking about your appearances doing DJs, and it says, my first question to Kevin is there any chance of one of your DJ sets making its way to Toronto in the near future? And also, if you are still hoping to tour with Download in the near future. And that's from Bobcat from Toronto.
Phil and I are working on new Download right now. We're getting tons of offers to do lots of live shows, so we're going to try and arrange that, make that a reality this year. And as far as DJ sets are concerned, I'm getting tons of offers for DJ sets. This one that I'm doing in Vancouver is totally unique. It's a concept for The Love Affair. It's actually Stephen Gilmore and I, the original DJ from The Love Affair in the day, is going to be spinning with me. That's actually how we met. He's the guy that did all of our artwork and all of our graphics for all of Skinny Puppy, and he's become quite famous. And he is going to return to the Wheels of Steel at The Love Affair, and we're going to do this conceptual show that's going to be all about a return to 1980. So get ready for that one. But the rest of the DJ sets I'm doing are kind of like, obviously, more modern, and they feature the music more of Download and Plateau and so on. And I just booked another show in Chicago, so it seems to be getting closer to Toronto, so that would probably answer your question there.
And Bobcat was also wondering, Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy, saw you with Skinny Puppy in Toronto in 2007, and no joke, it was one of the best-sounding shows I have ever heard. Love you guys, and can't wait to see Puppy again, plus the other stuff I mentioned, hopefully. All the best. And this is from Bobcat in Toronto. He's mentioning you playing in Toronto in 2007. In the media recently, I saw a reference to Skinny Puppy doing a show in 1985 at the Cat Club in New York City, and a person commented in Entertainment Weekly that it was the loudest show they ever heard. Do you remember doing a real loud show in New York City, 1985, at the Cat Club, and how would that compare to loudness to the 2007 Skinny Puppy Toronto show?
Well, we've always been known for loudness, I believe. Dave Ogilvy has always been one to push the limits of all the sound systems we ever played, and we continue that tradition with our man out front now, Mr. Ken Marshall. And I was told in Toronto at the Cool House where we played that there was sometimes like 28 sub-bass bins, so I realized that the system was rather large that night. So yeah, it probably would have been rather loud. Bobcat
was wondering, there, Kevin Key, about Nash the Slash. He said he saw Nash the Slash in Toronto, and Nash the Slash mentioned that when he played in Vancouver many years ago, he played with you guys. Do you remember that at all, Nash the Slash?
Yeah, of course I remember Nash the Slash, and I've spoken with him many times. We've never actually physically played together, but I believe we played close or nearby on the same bill one time. I've definitely attended a couple of his shows in the day.
Oh, this is what he says. Sorry. Teenagers, I guess being you, told him that he was influenced to them, and these young guys turned out to be the ones in Skinny Puppy. So you must have told Nash Slash that you were going to form the Skinny Puppy, and you did.
I must have. I definitely have met Nash the Slash at one point, that's for sure.
Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy, going back to the punk rock angle, I find it fascinating that Skinny Puppy were the first Canadian band on Sub Pop Records.
Yeah, that's right.
You were on the Sub Pop 100 compilation, yep. Church in Hell, and I think it's really neat how you've kind of held on to that all these years, Kevin, because years later, you got Spencer Eldon, the naked kid from the Nirvana cover, Sub Pop, etc. Well, that was a Geffen release, but still Nirvana, to be on the cover of your Dragon Experience record. What can you tell the people about that? You getting Spencer Eldon, the Nirvana kid.
Yeah, well, it turned out that my girlfriend was babysitting him for a while, and then we were watching him grow up, and when he turned about 7 years old, we realized, hey, he was talking about things, and, we realized, hey, would you like to do that again? And he was like, yes. So we formulated the idea to do another cover, and now he's considerably older, and he's become quite an artist. I believe online you can Google him, and you can see some of his new paintings. He's become like a junior Jim Cummings.
Caller, are you there?
Yeah, Nardwuar.
Go ahead to Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy, Hans.
Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy. This is Hans von Kloss here. Listen, it's a funny thing that Nardwuar said that's the first gig he ever saw live. I came to Canada in 1986, and I was just so depressed because the radio is so fucked up, was in this town, so commercial, so bad. And then I just tuned into, what was this, David Wisdom, like a night show, and the first thing I heard was a Skinny Puppy and David Sylvian, and I said, oh, well, maybe there's a hope for this town, and that was the first time I heard you, and that I thought that's a cool thing, and I never heard you before.
That was in what country?
Here in Vancouver. David Wisdom used to have a show at night, I think it was called Pearl of Wisdom.
It was called Nightlines.
Oh, there you go.
The caller was...
And I just was listening to the radio, and there was so much shit around. And then I hear this, David Sylvian, and then I hear Skinny Puppy. I didn't know who that was, Skinny Puppy. But, that was something that I really like. And I said, well, maybe there is a hope. Maybe there's finally some good radio. And then, a few weeks later, I hear you guys on CiTR, and things started from there. So thank you, Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy, for, giving hope to radio waves.
Hey, thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Hans, and do.
I have one more question.
Oh, you have another question, Hans. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, if you had a pick between the Smiths and Joy Division, what was your pick?
Say that again. I can barely hear you.
What do you like better, the Smiths or Joy Division, Hans said?
Oh, there's just no question it's Joy Division.
Well, there's a question, but okay, it's your pick.
I mean, Joy Division is one of those bands, the first time you ever heard it, it actually made you go home and throw away half your records.
You got that right. And that Ian Curtis died on 29 years ago, 3 days ago.
Well, that's, something that I don't actually pay attention to, but it's certainly always a sad loss.
Well, that's coincidence, but, thanks for your pick.
Well, thanks so much, Hans Klaus, and doot-doot-a-loot-doo.
Well, Nardwuar, Hans von Klaus.
Hans von Klaus.
No, Hans von Klaus.
Doot-doot-a-loot-doo.
Doot-doo.
All right, thank you. And Kevin, speaking of CiTR, the caller mentioned CiTR. I have to ask you, CiTR's program guides, called Discorder, still is called Discorder, was called Discorder. You guys mailed some shit to CiTR after a bad review. Do you remember that at all?
Oh, fuck yeah. Yes, I do.
What was the review that prompted that?
I think it was something that Mark Machette had written.
I thought it was really neat how you mailed shit and then the letter was published on a brown stained piece of paper when Discorder printed the letter. I was curious, whose shit was it that you sent?
It was my cat. My cat, it was fresh too. Just like I left the letter in the litter box for a while and the cat did it, and it was very appropriate at the time. I think if anyone from that era can recall, there was a little bit vendetta going on between Mark and Skinny Puppy, and it became kind of like a very public type battle in a weird type of way, and it was kind of funny, it did become sort of more of a Lucy and Desi type fight, but I don't know, it sort of made it I think all the better in the end.
Well, we're talking about it today, and I guess I was curious, did you send shit anywhere else? Was Mark Machette of Discorder the only person that got it?
No, that he was the sole individual, the only recipient ever to receive my cat's glorious shit.
And we have a caller. Hello, caller. Are you there?
Hi, Nardwuar.
Go ahead to Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy Caller.
Hi, Kevin. Big fan. Just a couple questions, actually. Wondered if you checked out the Throbbing Gristle reunion at all, anywhere in North America.
I was in Japan at that time, unfortunately.
Have you heard the new record at all?
A new Throbbing Gristle?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know there was one.
Oh, well, we happen to have one at CiTR, actually.
Well, any other questions, caller?
Thanks, man.
Well, thanks so much, and doot-doot-a-loot-doo. And we have another caller. Hello, caller. Are you there?
Hey, yeah, I just want to know what happened to Nivik Ogre.
What happened to him? He's currently residing here in Los Angeles, California, and working on the new Skinny Puppy vocalizing.
Right on.
Well, any other questions at all, caller?
No.
Well, thanks so much, and doot-doot-a-loot-doo.
Doot-doot.
Now, the caller was wondering about Nivik Ogre, and we actually have another tweet question kind of relating to that, Kevin Key. This is Kevin Key of Skinny Pepper speaking to. It's Filmbug, and Filmbug was wondering, I'd like to know if Kevin Key would also do more film work, if offered, like Ogre is doing film work. And rest in peace, A-Duck.
Who wouldn't? I mean, if you're given an opportunity to be creative and have it, captured by a bunch of like-minded individuals who want to turn it into some sort of art form, I think that's a great way to spend your life. So the answer would be yes.
And we have another tweet question from GC Records. This is to Kevin Key, and it says, is the title of the Skinny Puppy album read Vivisect VI, or is it Vivisect 6?
Vivisect 6 would be the answer.
And we have one last one here. We have from Docta, and a question says, Dear Kevin Key, what would you change about the music industry?
Well, there's a lot of things that we'll look back upon and say, well, gee, that wasn't a fair period, and that wasn't a fair period. But slowly but surely, hopefully, we will get there. There's not many things you can change about a system that's already carved into stone.
I would say that over the years, you've had tremendous support from fans and also other organizations. Is it true that the Winnipeg National Ballet used Blood in the Wall, one of your tunes, for a number? Like they choreographed one of your songs, Skinny Puppy, and the Winnipeg National Ballet?
Yeah, Brian McDonald was the choreographer for that. It actually played at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, and they actually also featured that song, God's Gift Maggot.
Did you get a lot of the mail from troops during Gulf Wars and stuff? I understood that you did. What was that like in that time? Because people would actually be writing the letters. It wasn't like email, was it?
No, it's coming from the battlefield, because you can tell it has a locale that's been delivered by a general mail bag that comes in and out of Iraq.
Were there a lot of people following you from gigs to gigs at that time? Like, I know there was a girl called Jessica that followed you on the Too Dark Park tour. I don't know if you remember her.
Yes, yeah, we used to call her Blue. Many people have followed the tours. Not as many as, say, Grateful Dead, but certainly enough to recall that it happens on every tour, even still.
Whatever happened to Blue, and why did you call her Blue? Have you seen her at all since?
Oh, she had blue hair. I think we saw her on the last tour at one of the shows where she appeared. And the time before that, I think she was working in Chicago at the Metro record store. We saw her in there, too. Who knows where Blue is now?
I mentioned the CiTR incident, but connecting that all together is the artist known as Blowfly. Are you familiar with the legendary 60s, 90s rapper, 2000, 21st century rapper Blowfly at all?
Yeah, from Miami?
Yes, exactly. He's from Miami. He has a song called Shittin' on the Docketed Bay, named after Otis Redding, Sittin' on the Docketed Bay, and he actually collaborates with Otto van Schirach. And what can you say about Otto van Schirach? Because you're collaborating with him as well. Otto van Schirach, Shittin' on the Bay, Blowfly, Skinny Puppy, shit all together. What's going on with Otto in Miami there?
He's like a brother from another mother, and it was very nice to, wander the earth for quite some time, not feeling like connection to a person much like I had from my dearly departed friends, Dwayne Gettle and Al Nelson. There was a bit of a sense of humor that we had that I dearly miss, and I ran into Otto von Schirach one day, and he just is just another tentacle of this family. So he's pulled us all into the Miami framework with the whole Miami bass and the Blowfly and the whole scene down there, and basically somehow integrated us into believing that we should pay attention to this part of the world. So yeah, there's a definite collaborative effort going on now between Otto and I on future projects.
Do you think that might end up on a Skinny Puppy record then? Because then you could maybe have Blowfly on a Skinny Puppy record.
Yeah, actually, Otto has been on the last two records, playing on a couple of songs already.
We have a tweet question for you, and it says, Kevin Key, what is your relationship with the band Thought Industry? Do you remember the band Thought Industry at all?
Yeah, they were a band that played with us on one of the tours, Dustin
Donaldson.
Yeah, I remember him well. The drummer, he went on to being called Scissor Man or something.
He's in a band called I Am Spoonbender?
Spoonbender, that's it. I knew it had something to do with kitchen appliances.
So he was opening up for you guys? Like Thought Industry opened up for you guys?
Yeah, that's right. I guess that's probably sometime in the Last Rites tour.
And this question came from Lucky Come Hawaii. So Lucky Come Hawaii, there's the answer. And Dustin, yes, I Am Spoonbender. And believe it or not, there's a Vancouver connection because Cup Awada, Robin Cup Awada from that band, is from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and was at CiTR.
Right.
Your early life, did you begin as a buggy boy at Safeway in North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada?
Actually, I was one of the first male cashiers at a Safeway testing store.
In North Van?
Yeah, 13th and Lonsdale. Go say hi from Kevin from Skinny Puppy to all the people up there. Maybe there's going to be a remnant.
No, it was a Safeway testing store. I think that store is still there. How was it a Safeway testing store? That sounds very Skinny Puppy-ish, doesn't it? Testing store.
Yeah, they used to try out things for the first time there. So the first scanners and all the first little gadgets that Safeway was trying out. And then, of course, in the day, there was never male cashiers. So they just said, okay, we're putting you on the cashier, and never let me out. And so I spent 3 years doing that, actually. That's actually how I first met Ogre.
Really? Did he come into Safeway? He came into North Van?
Yeah, he came through my line.
Really?
Yeah, and then my first conversation with him outside of Safeway when I actually was speaking to him downtown was, I'm your Safeway cashier.
That's amazing that North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada has such an important role in Skinny Puppy. Thank you, North Vancouver.
Yeah, thank you, North Van. I was born and raised there.
At your first local gig, what was your first local gig that you actually attended, Kevin Key, growing up? Like your first local band that you saw? Like what local Vancouver bands did you see before you ended up joining Images in Vogue? Like did you see any local Images in Vogue type bands before you joined Images in Vogue? What local bands were you into? Were you into the Vancouver punk scene?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I had a friend from England that was in my English class that kept on saying, we're going to go out this weekend and we're going to see the first, like I think I saw the first DOA show and then several, after that it was just, every weekend we were at the Smiling Buddha pretty much, and that's how I met Al Nelson, and we were basically pretty on top of that, and then I saw, E. I used to go to, Art Bergman and Glenn Nelson in E. That was probably a very early version of an electro prog fusion band of Vancouver.
They were great, weren't they? Really
unheralded. Yeah, they were, I mean, the Vancouver scene, DOA was probably one of the greatest things I've still ever seen in my life. I mean, I equate it to an atomic bomb exploding on stage. Chuck Biscuits is still one of the greatest drummers I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen him in L.A. at all? Because he's kind of in L.A., California. Have you seen him in L.A. ever? Did you ever see him after DOA?
Yeah, actually, I ran into him, and he's the drummer of Danzig probably 15 years ago, but I haven't seen him since then.
Caller, are you there? Go ahead to Kevin Key.
Yes, hi, Nardwuar. How you doing?
Go ahead.
Hey, you just said Images in Vogue. Did you happen to open for Roxy Music, like in the 80s or something like that?
Yes, we did twice. We were on the Avalon tour, opening in Edmonton in the Edmonton Coliseum, and also in Vancouver at the Pacific Coliseum.
That's right. I that you totally just flashed back, and I remember seeing that coming in and thinking, who the hell are these guys? They're so fantastic. And the Roxy Music was actually so-so. But I think your the singer had a really bad cold. But anyway, you guys were fantastic, and thanks a lot, Nardwuar. Excellent show.
Well, thank you.
His pants also split open during the performance, from what I can recall.
Really? And what? That was Dale, right? Your lead singer?
Yeah, Dale's pants. Yeah.
Now the caller was asking about Roxy Music. What lineup of Roxy Music was that? There was no Eno at that time, was there?
No, it was the Avalon tour, so it was like Ferry, Manzera, and McKay, and Andy Newmark on drums, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I have to say, it was one of the greatest sounding shows in a Coliseum that I still have ever heard.
Images in Vogue also played with Depeche Mode. Where did that happen? How many gigs did you do, and what era of Depeche Mode was that?
We played with them a couple of times. Once at the very first tour they ever did, where they actually just had a tape deck on stage, and then one guy had a Moog Source keyboard and then 4 microphones. That was at the Commodore Ballroom, I believe, sometime in 1981.
Have you...
In Toronto, we also played with them again, and that was probably sometime around 83, I'm guessing.
Did you ever play with them with Skinny Puppy at all in any giant festival bills, or did they remember you from Images in Vogue at all?
Skinny Puppy did not play with Depeche Mode, no.
I would have thought in one of those giant European festivals you might have played with them or something like that.
Not so far, no. Kraftwerk, which was probably, one of my... I mean, I love the gig poster. It's like Kraftwerk, Skinny Puppy, and it was a giant show in Sweden, so it was like very unusual.
What year was this? Was this a more recent show?
Yeah, this was just in 2004, I believe it was, the Greater Wrong and the Right tour.
And that's when like Kraftwerk came out and they had like laptops right in front of them, and at the very end, it had robots come out for them or something?
Yeah, it's the same tour they've actually been doing for about the last 4 years now. They've been pretty active lately. So
you had Terry McBride as a manager for a while. Did Skinny Puppy ever get managed by Terry McBride? Yes, of course, right?
Yes, Terry also, started Network and was very instrumental in probably helping the whole Vancouver scene rise up.
Because I was thinking, before Terry, there was Kim Clark Chapness. He was your manager.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy, Kim Clark Chapness. I miss him.
Because he also managed a local band called The Fourth Floor. Do you remember them from West Vancouver, BC, Canada?
Sure.
They were like one of the bands that was severely influenced by you, I think, maybe. Well, or maybe not, but they definitely paved their own way. They were really good. And I guess what I was curious about was the influence of Skinny Puppy there, Kevin Key. It seems to still be everywhere. I interviewed a band a couple weeks ago called Abe Vigoda. They're from Los Angeles, where you're living right now, and they were talking about their Skinny Puppy T-shirts. And I've seen Skinny Puppy T-shirts everywhere. How come there were so many Skinny Puppy T-shirts? Is that because you guys sold a lot of shirts? I i.e., you didn't just sell one shirt, you sold a lot of designs. Like a kid would go to a gig and have to buy all 9 of the designs.
Yeah, that does happen with us. If we have 8 shirts, some people have to seemingly buy all 8.
Were you one of the first bands to do that, to have like 9 different styles of T-shirts?
On the Two Dog Park tour, I think that was a pretty new idea. We had 12 different types of shirts, and I think that was a pretty different idea at that time.
Because basically, Skinny Puppy shirts are like the ultimate symbol of cool undergroundness in the mid to late 80s, and still are. Like, it's still continuing on. Who have you seen wearing Skinny Puppy shirts?
It just has been surprising as to where they've actually been. They show up everywhere, but the person that really has to get credit for designing what could be considered an all-time classic thing is Jim Cummings. Brain Eater was a guy that I knew was going to nail a T-shirt design that would become like something that would be very, very symbolic and iconic. And to this day, people that's what they covet the Two Dark Park Live shirt or the Last Ride shirt, like it's like, a piece of artwork. And so I really think that I've heard a trillion stories about T-shirts, I got to say, about the people that talk about them like they're alive. So it's kind of funny.
Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy, did Skinny Puppy T-shirts keep network records going in the early years?
T-shirts I don't know about, but definitely CD sales.
I thought it was the T-shirts that really kept Skinny Puppy, Skinny Puppy's T-shirt sales really kept network going.
Well, that's something that maybe Terry and I sit down one day and have a beer about. I don't really know too much about that side right now. We were so young and naive. We're definitely victims of signing what I consider to be, one of the world's worst contracts. And I think, what's kind of sad is that, as a victim of not studying and getting a lawyer and making sure we didn't have a contract that had about a bunch of these forever clauses and so on, we sort of fell into this situation. So what we've tried to do is let bygones be bygones and let the water go under the bridge and just let that go and move on. And I think that for now, I know that for the first 7 years of Network's thing, and they were devoted to the underground and electronics and really, really supported it well. And then obviously when Sarah came along, that there was a really good need to focus on a new style of music, and I believe they probably did the right thing at the time. And then later, we've just sort of learned, everyone learns in retrospect, how you maybe could have done it better or what you maybe should have investigated or looked into. And so maybe there's a big story here underneath, but I don't really know what the actual truth of the matter might be, but it's a mystery. Have you talked to Terry at all recently or in the past little while? Did you ever talk to him? Well, unfortunately, I tried to extend a communication to Network and be on a familiar, friendly level, but for some reason, we just don't speak very often. It's very, very uncommon to receive any communication from them in any way. So I really don't know why. I haven't, really been in Vancouver a lot for about 9 years, so I can't really say that it's something that I should go down and visit or something, but we'll see. Now, speaking of Terry and stuff, he's kind of branched into some interesting things. He has some yoga studios now. Do you know that he's into yoga now? No, I didn't know that. He's got some yoga studios that he's running, and also, he's been managing the Bare Naked Ladies and stuff. They have their own ice cream. Did you hear about that? No, I didn't hear about that. There's the Ben & Jerry's ice cream. If I had $1 million, Ben & Jerry's have named an ice cream after the Bare Naked Ladies. And I guess I was just thinking back, were Skinny Puppy ever asked to endorse any products? Diet food, pet food, anything like that? No, I don't think Terry was actually thinking that far ahead. I believe if he possibly was, I think Terry has a really good business sense, and that's probably Terry thinking really, really well for them. I think that, Skinny Puppy definitely could have been marketed to many different avenues, but we just remained in the music department. Caller, are you there?
Yeah.
Go ahead to Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy.
Hey, Kevin, good to talk to you. Hope things are good in L.A. Question, major early influences, you say more with the British punk scene or more the LA kind of scene, or even New York, to throw that in?
Well, at certain times you go through certain periods, and, it's a growing thing. The first concert I ever saw was in Quad at Pacific Coliseum, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I think that was 1975 or 76. And they squeezed like 26,000 people in there, and there was people smoking so much pot that you couldn't even see the scoreboard. What a great concert that was. Had my T-shirt over my face the whole time. And I was like only 13 years old. So I could say that was a pretty huge influence to see a band tripping out like on the first show that I ever saw. Hey, Nardwuar, ring a bell there?
Exactly. July 5th, 1985, the first show I ever saw, linking all together. Any other questions at all, caller?
Best early show on record in your mind that really sticks out? Influential-wise.
Well, July 5th, 1985, the show they played for me, obviously.
And you can remember, too. Good.
David Bowie at the Pacific Coliseum Station to Station tour had an idea that he wanted Kraftwerk as their opening act, and they couldn't make it, so instead he played the album Radioactivity at like as though they were their level and showed Salvador Dali's Incendulu on a screen, and that was it for me. I just practically pooed myself.
Where was that, and what year would it have been?
76 Station to Station tour, Pacific Coliseum, Vancouver, Canada.
Well, thanks so much, caller, and doot-doot-a-loot-doo.
Doot-doot.
Somebody emailed in, John, saying, what is the story behind the Expo 86 gig? Did you play Expo 86? Because I know Einstein Neubauten played Expo 86. I don't remember you. Did you play Expo 86?
Well, the reason that Einstein Neubauten and Test Department played at Expo 86 is because both Kevin Ogilvy and myself actually worked behind the scenes in the entertainment division of Expo 86 for the duration of that festival with Myra Davies and David Hauke. Basically, we sort of slipped in a couple of very modern acts, and the intention was to have a Vancouver week to follow it up. And Slow, the lovely band Slow, which I actually I love Tom and I love Ham, and I really love these guys. They came on and they decided they were going to play, I believe it was BC Day, and they decided to pull their pants down, and I believe Tom urinated on the stage, and that was it. The festival for the whole rest of the week was shut down, and Skinny Puppy had intended on playing at the end of that week. So we did have a huge show planned, a very huge, probably the hugest show that we had ever planned. Along the guys of the Expo 86 production crew that had worked with us throughout the entire time. Each person had an expertise. We had one guy that was a bomb specialist. We had one person that was props, and we had people that was going to be like 15 dogs and 25 people. It was a really big show, and so basically it would be the show that never happened that never went down.
And there was no hard feelings towards Slow or Ham, because Ham turned up in a band, Tank Hog, who you took on tour with you for the Two Dark Park tour.
Yeah, we love Tom, and we love Ham, and we love all those guys.
However, it was kind of interesting for Tank Hog opening up for you guys on that tour, possibly one of your biggest tours ever, because didn't Shane of Tank Hog get stabbed in the ass at one of your gigs in Miami?
Yeah, he did, and it kind of flavored that whole evening. Everyone was running around kind of frightened that we were all going to get murdered.
What was that particular tour like? That was the tour when, like, Ogre would come out on stilts and stuff like that. That was really neat, wasn't it? What were those stilts?
I believe they were painter's stilts that he had adapted in some way. A friend of his in Vancouver, I'm trying to remember the name right now, who's a hydraulic specialist, basically developed some painter arms that had hydraulic controls, and so he could become like a spider-type creature, and he used to become several creatures during... Well, many of the shows, Ogre has liked to become creatures. You actually had semis on that tour, didn't you? Skinny Puppy and semis, like big semis, right? Yeah, we did, yeah. On that particular tour that was going on and going back and forth, you had Sarah McLachlan's road manager as your road manager. But this is before Sarah McLachlan got this road manager. Did the Sarah McLachlan road manager give up on the Skinny Puppy tour and then go to Sarah because it was a bit easier? No, he was hired logically because he did just such a good job with Skinny Puppy that obviously he would work his way up within the framework of that company. Did you ever party with the Grapes of Wrath or Sarah McLachlan in those early network days at all, Kevin Key? Absolutely, absolutely. Sarah, as a matter of fact, how she actually met Network was our catering girl when we first played in Halifax, and she passed a demo tape on to Mark Jowett. That was the ground zero. You created the monster that is Sarah McLachlan and their Skinny Puppy indirectly, wasn't it? Or her cooking skills. Baboon, do you still have a PCM digital delay lexicon? Yeah, PCM 41, one of the greatest digital delays ever made. How close have you come to losing that? Or have you ever lost it? Or how many have you bought?
Well, we've gone through two or three. I have one that I now don't travel with because they can get broken pretty easily. And, many people have asked, like, what is the sound of Skinny Puppy, would you say? Well, the thing that probably was one of the original ingredients, the salt or the pepper. And I definitely say the Lexicon PCM41 is a very important place in Skinny Puppy's history.
Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy, I was just curious about Chud. You guys getting arrested for operating on a stuffed animal. How did that happen? How could you get arrested for operating on a stuffed animal?
I don't know. I actually thought that night was like some sort of weird bad dream because nothing logical made sense that night. You could explain something, and it was like, put your hands out, asshole. What? But you don't understand. Shut up. Get on the floor. What? Oh, what? And when we were taken through the crowd, the comments that those Cincinnati police officers made were the equivalent of what I heard to be some of the most discriminating racist comments I'd ever heard. And after that, I actually heard that Cincinnati was kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like, a corrupt underground sort of force running their police department, I heard, and has since been changed. But maybe someone out there who's listening in Cincinnati might be able to know exactly what I'm talking about during that time period. It was pretty crazy.
Chud was really important, wasn't he? Chud for Skinny Puppy. Like, you lost Chud. What was Chud for people who don't know? It was a stuffed animal. It was important. Like, you lost Chud and had to get Chud back.
Yeah, there's a movie based on, there should be a movie based on the night that Chud was stolen from the St. Andrews Hall in Detroit, which is actually the location where Eminem was starting out just downstairs, his whole thing around, just around a little bit after. Probably weird, it's in that same locale. So anyways, Chud was stolen from the venue, and he was an important part of the show. It was like a custom-built thing, dog creature that Ogre used to do a simulated vivisect type of experiment on, but to express to people that this was happening. And we somehow got a one-word clue as to who might have taken the dog, but we didn't know the name. And anyways, throughout the entire night, driving back and forth through the whole 8-mile region, 6 hours later, we ended up getting the dog back and getting it back from the person and from their car out in front of their house, and then getting it back to the bus. Just as the bus was about to leave, got on the bus, slept, got up, went and did the show in Cincinnati, and then the police came backstage and wanted to know about the dog. And then that's why we were like, wait, what do you want to know about the dog? It took us all night to just get this dog back. First, what do you want to know? And so that's why I think it got really like blown into another world, a whole other story. You
mentioned a bit about police and stuff there. Just lastly here, Kevin Key, thanks for your time here live on the Nardwuar the Human Serviette radio show. What about visuals? Your visuals of Skinny Puppy were amazing. What was that visual that you had of, like, high-impact head injuries on apes? That was an amazing movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, certain people have gone above and beyond to display visuals with Puppy, in a sense, as part of the whole impact. And, I think Gary Smith was responsible for that tour, a guy who has gone on to be, an assistant director in many films made in Vancouver, also previously in Images in Vogue. Nowadays, we're working with Tim Hill, another Vancouverite, who is also like a psychedelic classic genius visualist. And I just think that the visual artists always should be given as much credit as anybody else. They're really, really traveling people that are partaking in the show in the same way as we play, that, they're partaking.
Is that
in the day, sorry, I just wanted to say that, Al Nelson from Hilton, the punk rock scene, basically used to travel with about 5 or 7 projectors and painlessly go through the venues and set up these loops in the projectors and have them playing, and he would crossfade with pieces of paper that he'd string on up with tape over the ceiling and everything. It was unbelievable the amount of work that he used to go through in those old days, like in the 80s, to do those shows.
Is that what got Tipper Gore from the PMRC mad at you? Why was Tipper Gore mad at you? Was it through your visuals, or was it for your lyrics, or what was Tipper Gore upset about Skinny Puppy?
Well, I think there was a period where just anybody that represented, like, the dark morals had to be, stamped, and I think that I didn't know if there was a direct reason. Kind of like how when the Dig It video got banned on Much Music, they thought that we were sending subliminal messages in the 2 bars on the top and bottom of the screen.
Which is something you would love to do if you'd actually thought of that, but you never thought of doing that, right? Like you would have done it for sure. Thank you, Much Music, for the idea. Did you actually ever use that idea?
No, we never did, but it was nice to get blamed for it, though.
Kevin Key, did you ever make it to Forrest Ackerman's house? You know, Forrest Ackerman, a legendary monster guy.
Yes, I did. I visited with him a few times with Ogre, who was a very good friend of Forey's until he passed away just this year.
Because I never made it there. What did I miss? Is there still a chance to be able to go to his house? What happened?
You know, I don't know what the state of it is now. I believe maybe his son or something has maybe possibly something to do with it. Ogre would be able to answer that more clearly. But what you would see there was basically, you know, the earliest props of just unbelievable collection of horror, you know, props and stories and scripts and unbelievable stuff.
And that's kind of what I wanted to think about, was happy stuff with Skinny Puppy. For instance, like Dwayne, he was really into remote control cars, wasn't he? Dwayne from Skinny Puppy.
Yeah, he was, as a matter of fact.
Because you don't really think of like Skinny Puppy and remote control cars, but I think he was like into playing like remote control cars with like opening bands, with like Tank Hog and stuff on your giant Too Dark Park tour. What can you say about Dwayne and remote control cars and stuff like that?
Oh man, there's not somebody who I've ever missed. Like, it's been 14 years since he died, and I just swear my brain will not let it go. I mean, obviously I love the guy as a brother, but like, it's a daily thing for me. You know, I mean, it's a thing that I have to keep him, you know, alive in my mind and just be happy. But Dwayne is such a great guy, such a great spirit, and you know, all of the things that I remember, like, yeah, when I see remote control cars or video games of any kind, or just basically just his general spirit, it was just so soothing and so inspirational. I learned so much from Dwayne. He's such an amazing composer and such an amazing technical genius. It's just so, you know, sadly missed, but one thing I realize is that when you have time spent and you appreciate the time and you look back on it and you see that there's nothing more that you can do, you just have to do nothing more than except learn from it and just live from what I learned from the master. So that's how I live my life now.
Actually, I saw some videos of that, like you guys on Soundproof, or maybe even playing at the Pit Pub, and it was amazing. And it's like no. Do you have a song that went no? It was just amazing. It was incredible.
Thanks, Nardwuar. That's what I was thinking too.
Do you remember? Yeah, It was totally amazing. It was really early Images in Vogue. Well, thanks so much, Kevin Key. Keep on rocking in the free world, and
thank you.
Doot-doodaloot-doo.
Doot-doo.